Hey everyone, welcome to today's demo. Today I'm going to be demoing our monthly challenge, which is the skull study. I'm going to be demoing this of the 3/4 view facing left, and then you guys can apply this on your own to the other two. That's part of the assignment this month. So first things first, let's go over the supplies. I'm going to be using graphite today, and I'll just be using these simple tools. So I have an HB pencil. I have a charcoal pencil that's 4B with a little eraser attached to it, so just in case I need to erase out any values. This is going to be an option just for us maybe to get some darker values towards the end. I have a blending stump. This is also optional. You can use your finger or you can use a Q-tip. And I also have a mechanical pencil because sometimes I like to get in a little bit more detail and stylize it. Also has like a little twisty eraser. Super simple, nothing crazy. And then I have these two erasers, which is a kneaded eraser, which it's going to allow us to pick up some value without getting any eraser shavings. And I have an extra hard eraser just in case I need to really lift off some of that value. And that's it. Let us begin. I'm going to be placing my reference over on the left. I highly recommend you print out your reference and also maybe view it on your computer or your tablet, but having it right beside you is super helpful, especially when you're studying it and you're really trying to get the visuals in. I'm going to just tape that right here. Quick note, if you are at home and you have a table easel or you have somewhere where you can elevate your desk, just for demo purposes, I'm placing mine on a table and I'm actually standing so that I can see it from a top view and see it from afar, because when you're like really close to your paper, it's really hard to kind of see the bigger picture. If you have the opportunity to step back or either elevate your desk or kind of tilt it so you can see it sort of from an easel perspective, that's great. If not, no worries, just I'm gonna be letting you guys know to take a step back and view your drawings from a little bit further. All right, so let us begin. I'm going to start off with my HB pencil. I'm going to hold it a little bit further and I'm going to begin finding my angles. I'm just going to map this out so you guys can visually see. And I'm going to stylize this just a little bit so that we are able to also put in a little bit of our personality into our drawings. And I'm going to be filling up the whole page, maybe making it slightly smaller because the margins out here are a bit, small for my liking, but nothing to worry about at this moment. Right now, this is the stage where I'm finding angles and I'm just quickly, very lightly, you may not even be able to see it in the camera because that is how light I'm drawing. I'm just finding the overall shape and I'm finding this very quickly. I'm not spending too much time on this because I want to leave a little bit of room for spontaneity, personality of the line to show through, and etc. So why do a skull study? Well, I know it can sound redundant. I know it can sound a little boring because it is like the inside of our what's inside of us, and that is exactly the reason why we want to study that, because this is going to allow us to really see where the cheekbones are, where the nose bridge is relating to the eye socket, because our eyes literally sit in here. Our mouth, how it actually protrudes out. Our chin and its relationship, its angle to our nose, to our end of our head and our skull, which is super important, especially when you're drawing portraits. And it's just a great foundational skill. Back in art school, we spent, I think, like a month or two just on the skull, and then another half a year on the whole figure and the whole skeleton itself, which let me know if you guys want to do that for the next one here on Patreon, because I want to really get everybody's skills sharpened, and I think demoing this for you guys will be really helpful, which is why I am doing my best to get these videos out to you in the earlier sides of the month this year so that you can kind of refer to it as you tackle the challenge. Okay, so this is just a simple beginning. Simple. Take your time here, do not rush. Just because I'm working maybe perhaps a little bit quicker, feel free to pause and take your own time and, level that you are at to just observe. And if I see a shadow shape, I'm slowly beginning to just note that for myself. This is the part where we are creating our map, our visual map for our own brain to capture. And even if we're just getting the main areas in, still begin to note where the light is coming from. The light is coming from here, and some of these areas are still catching light. So just begin to think about that. I know it's still early on in the drawing, but we want to be thinking one step ahead sometimes. Now, although this is a really complex object, like the skull, we want to try and simplify at all times. Here's sort of like an oval rock shape, and this protrudes out. Everything is in relation to one another. It's up to you how much detail you want to put. It's up to you how much time you want to spend on the sketch. Regardless, this is excellent practice. And give yourself props that you showed up to the page. Give yourself props that you sat down to really sharpen and just draw. So these parts here really show us like our muscle, like the muscles sit on top, but the structure of where they sit inside of is super helpful when it comes to drawing portraits. Now, in the photograph that I printed out, I'm also in front of me, and you guys don't see this on camera, I have a digital version of it in front of me that allows me to see it from afar as well, which is really helpful. But if you can have both options, you'll be able to see darker shadows on your computer screen. And depending on what printer you have, and if you even printed it out, you'll be able to kind of see those shadows a bit more. But having the paper right beside you for comparison is also super excellent. Okay, now I have established this rough little drawing. And what I like to do, and currently what I've been doing, is I like to take my blending stump and look how I'm holding it from afar. And I just start, I'm going to be working back and forth with the blending stump. I just start establishing these values. Now, you can do the same thing by shading with your pencil, the same way, but the blending stump just allows us to do this a bit quicker, and it's just so, it's liberating to just boom, and you have already this shadow shape that you've established very gently. Depending on the pencil you're using, sometimes if you're using the 7H or like a darker, softer pencil, it will shade darker immediately. So the more pencil you put, I like to build this up. So it's safe, less pressure, and we are getting to know our subject. Now, I'm also going to put in a quick value out here. As you guys know, I'm always pushing you guys to have a value in the background, because that establishes that highlight right there. Just as I already put that in, this already comes forward. The table may jiggle and shake a little bit from this process, but that's totally okay. Now, there are different styles of approaches to certain drawings. You can have a harder edge, you can have a softer edge. Maybe experiment with those different things in your drawings this month. Maybe try to have a more defined edge and see what that, how you feel about that. Sometimes having a defined edge can do really beautiful stylization to your drawings, and sometimes it can hurt it. So just keep that in mind. I like to create versatility And sometimes I practice both and then I decide. So again, my way of thinking of things is make sure you kind of are aware of how you like it. What's your taste? Maybe you prefer a really sharp line. Maybe you want to get bold with your outlines. Maybe you actually don't even want to have outlines. Maybe everything you want to be softened. Okay. So I like to create a little bit of a definition with a little bit of a stylized, expressive line. One thing I'm kind of going to be focusing on this year for my drawings is less is more. Sometimes over-defining or overdoing can be hurtful, and sometimes not. I've practiced rendering out subjects many months, and I still do. But some drawings, I think when your personality and line quality shows through, it's really beautiful and special. So that's something that I'm working on this year, I think, and I invite you to do the same. So here I'm really going to be starting to push these shadows. Now that I have established and learned about the subject, I kind of feel familiar and happy about it at the stage that it's at. We're going to start pushing it a bit further. Get expressive with it, get messy with it. Don't get stuck in one area. Keep it moving, keep your hand moving, looking back and forth at the reference at all times. Now, as I'm drawing, I feel like the HB pencil is a bit light for getting a bit darker. So if you have a black wing, you can grab that one. Or your mechanical pencil, which has a 2H, a little bit darker of a lead, so maybe I can start defining certain areas there. Sometimes I like to define the shape and then shade it in. Stylize that line right there. And we have a nice shape back here. And the most important thing is just to have fun with your drawing. Just make sure that whatever you're doing, it feels fun and flow. You're in your flow, you're in your zone, and you're just enjoying the process. Just enjoy it. No stress. Get rid of the perfection. I know it's hard. we all can tend to do that, but just try to see this as a learning experience. Try to have fun with it. Don't worry. Remember that if yours looks a certain way, everyone's will have their own personal touch to it. And don't beat yourself up if it's not looking as perfect, as pristine as you want it to. Sometimes we have to let go of that because we are all learning, we are all progressing, we're all on a separate journey. So no stress here. And I'm right there holding your hand, so don't worry. Okay. So as I see in certain parts of the reference, we have 3 values. We have our darkest value, our middle value, and our light value. Ask yourself if your sketch is beginning to develop that. If everything looks like one value, all in the same, we need to start pushing the shadows, and we need to start erasing out those highlights. So remember, keep assessing and being aware of your drawing at all times. Be honest with yourself. Okay, step back. This is the part where we step back and we look. Okay, we have our main highlight here, which we can even draw in as a shape. Now we need to make sure that this highlight right here is going to stay the lightest. We have another one right there. And everything around it can begin to have slight value. And notice how gentle I'm beginning. You can always go darker. You can always build up your values. You can't really undo your dark, dark, dark. Yes, you can erase it, but then you're gonna get a little. You're gonna enter the the zone of a little bit of stress for yourself, perhaps. But just take it easy, nice and easy. Keep it a nice little journey and a nice little exploration for yourself. Okay, another thing to note, don't be afraid to leave some things unfinished. It's a little stylistic approach, a little sneaky tip that many artists and masterminds do. If you look at any of Da Vinci's drawings, half of them are unfinished. And I want everyone to also just think about your darkest parts of the skull. It's this area here, 1, 2, all of the background, and this little tiny area inside here. Sometimes if it's too dark, I'll just soften it. That's why I love the blending stump. There's another dark area right there. And we have our temple-like area in here. This area goes in slightly. And I'm also drawing with my blending stump and making that little area right there. And notice how that immediately pushes this here. So now as I feel that I've established it even more, I'm just going to be grabbing a darker pencil. I don't know, I didn't mention in the beginning, but I just grabbed the Palomino Blackwing, which really allows me to get really light and dark as I wish. And I'm selecting an area on the top left to make that my darkest value and my darkest kind of smudged area in the background. And then I'm going to establish just a little more random smudges here where I see there the most shadow. And I begin to do the same in all the areas. So now that I feel comfortable of all the placement, I begin building. And also creating some more interesting stylized lines. This is optional. You don't have to do this. I just wanted to also show you guys that. It's a great challenge and a great way to practice your skills. And we're all about getting better here, right? Now, teeth are fun and interesting and a challenge because sometimes if you over-define them and like in the skull, it works, but when you are drawing humans or if you're someone who does any commission portraits and the client sends you some smiling photos, you know that if you over-define those teeth, the person will look like a skeleton. So you just have to be really careful. It takes a while to get used to just doing it gently, and that's a whole other video and kind of tip video. So try to think of it as, again, one big shape area rather than individual little teeth. Just going to keep working at it, keep building it. I'm going to play some music for you guys to also focus in on your drawings at this part. and I'll be back in a sec. All right, so as you're drawing, I want you guys to think about what are the areas in your drawing that you want to have the most attention on and the most definition. So the moment you press harder on that pencil and you define that shape, that is where the viewer's eye will go. That is where you're going to establish the most attention in that moment. So if you have an area where you selected that attention to go, you have to balance it out in other areas. Okay, so think about that. Be confident with your decisions in your drawings. It will show in your line quality. It will show in the amount of how you push your shadows. So don't be afraid. But what I'm doing here is I'm really establishing certain parts of the skull to have a little bit more definition, and I'm approaching it with a little bit of a more bolder line, but I'm not doing it everywhere. As you can tell, in certain areas where I'm hand picking, sort of comes to me intuitively. Maybe you kind of have like a little feeling, okay, I have to kind of add a little more here. That's where kind of looking at your drawing a little further away really helps. And I'm just providing all these little things to think about for your drawing. And I hope you guys are finding it helpful. I think I'll define the teeth just a little bit, but I don't want it to be the main focus. I'll shade in, because it kind of looks like he's smiling, so I'll shade that in. And I really want this to be soft, so this is why the blending thumb comes in such great help. Really getting in these muscle, these like shadow areas here. Not muscle, I apologize. I meant bone. It's really interesting to see the shapes here. Maybe even want to define them. Make it kind of cool. As you are finding all of your shapes, as you're finding all of your values, give yourself credit for this new drawing you just started. Whether you have drawn skulls before, whether you have not, just give yourself that credit, and just the fact that you already came and showed up to your page, just give yourself that credit, give yourself that motivation, and it'll give you even more inspiration to come back. As my live sessions progress, everyone knows, if you have been to one of the live sessions here on Patreon, I always have everyone give each other and themselves a positive comment about their drawing, and then one thing they could have done better, but we will do that at the end. We're almost there. And it's also up to you to decide how in depth you want your drawing to go. Maybe you kind of like it loose and unfinished. Maybe you have reached a point where you feel like you don't want to overdo it. That is fine also. With every drawing, you begin to be more familiar with also yourself and how you draw, things you can improve, things you can alter. I'm gonna have entered the stage where I have opportunity to just add a little bit of highlights for the teeth. I'm just gonna add just a little bit. And as you can tell, I just used the blending stump right here. Just blended, and then I used the eraser, and I moved the eraser in different directions to just erase out that highlight. I like the shapes that are happening down here on the chin. I'm going to create a nice little line quality for myself and also soften, because everything here is in shadow and there's just one little highlight right here. If you look at the reference, and there's a protruding little boom. Okay, I just took a moment to look at it from afar. And now I'm going to be altering certain areas. Again, this is a back and forth process. You can work on a drawing for hours and hours on end until you still can keep working on it. So get rid of the pressure that it's going to be finished instantly, you know. Be patient with yourself. Be patient with your drawings. Try to add a little loose line quality to it. Give it a little bit more energy. If you would see me, I'm going back and forth, like side to side, looking at the reference, looking at my drawing, looking at the reference, looking at my drawing, and then repeat. Okay, this area is a tricky one where it gets light and dark. So just spend time, if you feel a bit more organized, to spend time on a certain section, then move into the other. Find what works best for you when you're observing a reference. I like to find little shapes and draw them in. I like to work on it actually as a whole sometimes. Now we always have a reflected light. So that would mean in areas back here, there's a light source still coming back here. It gets lighter than this. So make sure you either take your kneaded eraser and slightly get in that highlight that's coming in, that reflected light. Maybe it's a shape you draw. Maybe it's just a pat down where you pick up that value. Feel like this area can get just slightly darker so that this highlight really pops right here. Sometimes you can define that highlight with your blending stump. There's another one right here. Really helps to look at the angles. So sometimes you can go this, kind of find the angle with your pencil and then apply it to your drawing. Doing that just showed me to lower this shadow here and soften right next to it, right there. Back and forth process that we go through to obtain a successful drawing, which I believe a successful drawing is every drawing. However, a successful drawing can include all of your three values that I mentioned: a dark, medium, and light. If you've pushed your shadows somewhere, if you have clear highlights, and if you have a middle tone value, I feel like your drawing is already successful. If you have a proper proportion, that also adds to the success. However, just depending on where you are at in your creative journey, that can vary from person to person. Okay, I like how this is turning out, and I like the softness of the background, but why don't we push maybe some expressive lines back here, give it a little bit of energy, maybe down here a little bit. Careful though, sometimes these expressive lines can get a bit distracting. So that's where we think about our focus once again. Where do you want your focus to be? Okay, everyone, just take a moment to just step back at this moment. Step back and look at your drawing from afar. Look at what you have done so far. Give yourself credit, it looks great. Give yourself that credit. Okay, and you may have had a thought just come in like, oh, this needs to go higher, or this needs to be shaded in a bit more. So take the time right now to adjust that. Take the time to follow that instinct that you just heard in your head, or maybe you didn't. Maybe you're like, oh, this is perfect. This is the way it needs to be. I'm just gonna leave it this way. I don't need to overwork this anymore. So take a second to just look at it. I had some adjustments that I wanted to make, so I'm just going to be pushing that. Okay, I would love it if you have followed along, if you share on Instagram if you're comfortable, or on Discord, so that everyone can see your drawings and I can also reshare it. So just if you have done that, if you followed along, please, I'd love to see how this guided demo has helped you. Please, please, please share your feedback. It really, really helps others and myself just to see what you guys came up with. Okay, and I think I still want this dark shadow to be a bit darker, so it's never too late to get a bit darker. I'm just gonna soften that, and I think this can get a bit darker right there. And I just noticed I picked up this eye unintentionally, and the actual angle goes slightly down right there. And then I'm gonna soften it and curve that right there. Sometimes you can put a drawing away for like months, come back to it and be like, wow, could have done this better, or this is pretty successful. In the worksheet, I specifically showed 3 references because I want you guys to do that turnaround, and I am not demoing the other 2 because I find it's really important for you to apply what we did in this demo to your own practice without guidance, so that you are using your own creative muscles to finish and complete your studies. But feel free to refer to this at any time if you need help. But try to push yourself to do it without it, so that you see how this practice helped you in your own. All right, so I'm going to take a second to continue to push some of those shapes and creative lines with a darker, more confident line. So as we're coming to a close with this drawing, I just want to note something. The bone structure of the skull, everything has crevices, it has bumps, it has little wiggles. So keep your line variation with a little bit of, think of it as nothing is smooth here. Nothing is completely smooth. So don't worry to have all these little extra lines and stylization, because it will actually add to the benefit of this specific drawing, because we're dealing with bones that are imperfect. They are, have all these different textures in them. So this can be a really great point to think about as you're finishing up your drawing. So this would be a perfect time as we're finishing up to give yourself a positive comment about your drawing. Give yourself a nice, something that you really like that you did with this drawing. It could be anything from just the simple fact that you even did the drawing. It could be something similar and related to the values you added. Maybe you pushed your shadows more than you have in the past with this drawing. So think about that and give yourself a positive comment. You can start to think how you have progressed today. Take a step back, maybe just look at it from afar. Note what you did differently today. Note what you improved today. Take into account this drawing, even if it's big or small for you. Maybe you've been doing studies of skulls your whole life, and this is just another skull study. What did you do differently? What did you do to improve? And once you have done that, give yourself a comment on something that you want to take with you into the next drawing. What would you want to work on in the next drawing? Maybe it's, okay, I would like to improve the proportion a bit more. Maybe you tell yourself that you feel like you have not successfully did all the 3 values. Maybe you want to include more values in your next drawing. So think about that. Even the teeth and the texture we see in the teeth have all these different shapes, and different highlights show up here as well. I have a little video on, and we did this on the live, mixing different values and doing different values for mixing in the value scale just from light to dark. I would highly recommend, and I'll link it below, just focus on just doing a grayscale value before starting this, because it'll allow you to apply those light to dark techniques. So I'll have that linked below. And there, I think I like the teeth a little more defined. It gives it a little more context that it's a skull. Because I tend to put a little more detail in the other areas, so I decided to add a little bit more here as well. And I'm going to make this into a shape. Sometimes it's hard to pull away from a drawing, if you know what I mean. Sometimes you just want to keep drawing. And in certain times you actually have to just let it be the drawing and just stop. I made a little shape right here, like that. And yeah, guys, I think we're gonna call this complete as of now. I'll post the finished photo for you guys as well. Be sure to share what you did on Discord, or feel free to personal message me on there as well if you want just some personal feedback. Everyone gives some really great feedback over on Discord, so please don't be nervous to share your work. We're all here to progress, to improve. I want to create a safe space for you guys to just flourish creatively, whatever you need. We have a great community here, so please feel free to share your work. And I hope you found this video helpful. I hope you found all the tips that I have included in this video useful for you, no matter what level you are in your creative journey. I wish you all a wonderful year. It's going to be a really good one. I have lots of surprises coming, and I think that it's going to be just a wonderful year, and I'm setting it up as that, and you should too. So I wish you guys an amazing day, night, wherever you are. I think this is going to be our completed version of the skull. Feel free to date your drawing, sign your drawing if you please. You guys have some progress, and today is whatever date you're doing this, just date it, have a nice little record of this study, and apply what we did today into the other two. So we have the front facing skull and also the quarter facing to the right. Oh yeah, and I think this is it. Thank you guys so much for watching. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for your support, and I'm sending you guys hugs. Bye.